A funny thing about the PC Engine, if you mention any one of its biggest game series to people, there's a pretty good chance you're going to get a blank stare in response. Even if you're talking to nerds, these are games that didn't get a lot of attention outside of Japan. Valis III is the second entry of the Valis series to appear on the PC Engine, and I think it's fair to call it the peak of the series. You might recall that the Valis series started out on Japanese PCs, and Valis II was the first of those released on the PC Engine. The big hook of the Valis series was that they were very story-driven, much more than most action games at that point, and they had lengthy story cutscenes between stages. The concept behind the game is that ordinary high school student Yuko takes up the mantle of the Warrior of Valis. That position comes with a sword and bikini armor, a pop culture fashion trend that Yuko's credited with popularizing in Japan. A big change for Valis III is that Valis III was developed specifically for the PC Engine. There would be a port to the Mega Drive later, but the Valis series was no longer computer first, console second. It's something that makes a lot of sense when you consider that Nihon Telnet was putting a lot of effort into their PC Engine games at the time. The plot of Valis III is that an other-dimensional warlord is invading both Earth and the fantasy world that Yuko was originally from. Yuko finding out that she was their lost princess was part of the story of Valis II. To fight back this new threat, Yuko joins forces with the demon Cham and her long-lost sister Volka. A new feature in Valis III is magic attacks. You collect a staff with a colored orb on it to determine what type of magic you'll be using, and you charge your energy bar by collecting green gems. Up and button 2 casts the magic, and every character has their own set of spells. As a rule of thumb, Yuko's are the simplest and weakest, while Volna's spells tend to be much more powerful. Cham is in the middle between the two. One significant downside to the magic attacks is that they take a very long time to come out, maybe a second and a half. That makes them not very good for fast-moving targets. Fortunately, you don't have to rely on them, except for in one particular place where you have to use ice magic to freeze enemies and make platforms. You switch between which character you're controlling by pressing the start button, but not everyone's available all the time. This is a story-based game, and sometimes someone will just be off doing something else. And of course, Yuko has to get the other two on her side before they'll be part of her team. Yuko's big strength is using the Sword of Valis. It does a ton of damage, and now it shoots an enormous wave in front of it. No more of the puny little beams from previous games. The attack bar at the top of the screen charges up, and its level determines how far the wave shoots. The gauge also determines how much damage your attacks do, so it is always worth your while to let it build up to maximum. Cham's primary weapon is a whip, in case you couldn't tell what game series Valis III was taking most of its inspiration from. It offers good, consistent reach, but also doesn't have any extra range to it. Volna's attacks are all ranged, and as the power bar builds up, she'll get additional shots at different angles. The power bar also increases the range of her attacks. The length of that power bar can be increased by collecting the sword icons, and you can do this twice. And its charging speed is increased by collecting the double sword icon. Both of these effects go away if you die though. There's also a couple of movement techniques in Valis III. You can do a super high jump if you hold up and then press button 1. You almost have to be standing still for this to work though, so it's mostly useful for jumping up to a high place that you're already next to. The real trick through fitting through tight spaces, getting over long gaps, and dodging some enemy attacks is the slide move. You break it out by pressing down on the D-pad and hitting start. Down and button 1 was used for dropping through platforms, so they moved the slide over there. There are quite a few gaps in this game where you have to slide across them. It doesn't help that you can also bump your head into terrain above you and then fall straight down. What it comes down to is if you see a gap that's flat, you probably want to slide over it rather than jump it. As for the voice acting in the cutscenes, Nihon Telenet did their now standard thing of hiring professional voice actors who were very active but not necessarily top tier. People who spent 30 years playing a character in one episode of literally everything. The US version, of course, cast whoever was around the office.
And this used to be a peaceful place?
Yes, and that over there is Ramses' castle. He should be there now.
Yuko, the time has come for the final battle. Ramses, I won't let you get away with your evil plan.
For what it's worth, the recent Valis collections that have been released on modern platforms have the Japanese voice actors with English subtitles, so you don't have to listen to that either. There are a couple of special tricks in Valis 3, including a hidden minigame. From the real title screen, not the screen that the game starts out on, you enter this code, where you can view the cutscenes and do a sound test. There's also the Valis III Roulette, which is a slot machine where if you manage to score 150 points in 10 pulls, then it plays a special audio track. The other trick is during the opening cutscene, there's a recap of the previous games in the series. Well, most of the previous games in the series. If you punch in this long code during the opening cutscene, then you get a recap of the parody game SD Valis. In Japan, Valis 3 is pretty well regarded by players, though I didn't really see people calling out something specific about it, just, ooh, I like this game. Which, fair enough. Now, for my own feelings, I'm not especially fond of the Valis series. However, I also think Valis 3 is the best game in it. I feel like it's the version where Nihon Telenet finally figured out how to make everything fit together properly. It's still got some clunky edges, that part where you have to freeze enemies to get over a long section of water, for example. But for the most part, it's a pretty good action game, with some distinctive hooks to it. If you want to try a Valis game, yes, absolutely try Valis 3 first. You don't really need to know what happened before. And I even think that the PC Engine version is better than the Mega Drive version. Since this is on CD, they had to cut it down quite a bit for the Mega Drive. Valis 3 is a really good action game that manages to successfully integrate its story into the gameplay, gives you 3 different playable characters who all are very usable, includes a ton of different kinds of challenges. It's hard to ask for much more than this.